With a little trepidation, I am taking on Fields of Fire by GMT Games. In this video, we'll rebox the game and give you an example of play on Legendary Tactics. So we have gotten a hold of the deluxe edition of Fields of Fire. I'm not going to lie, there's a lot inside this box. There's a lot of reading. There's a lot of counters and cards and all sorts of stuff like that. So this game is not for the faint of heart. However, I am told, I'm still getting into this game, but I am told that it tells an incredible narrative and that it is well worth the investment. So I'm going to give it a go. And you can see on the back there, it's actually not rated the highest complexity that is possible, but there is a lot to learn. There's some cards here. There were some misprints on the Normandy cards, so I'm not going to open these particular ones because I have to sort through the ones that need to be replaced with the correct cards. But to give you an idea, there's some terrain cards, and there's three theaters. There's Normandy, Vietnam, and Korea, and that terrain is reflected in these cards. There's also a reshuffle card, and then there's an action deck, which is used for random number generation events and casualties and combat and so forth. It's multi-use, very reminiscent in some ways of something like Up Front, where you are turning over cards to see the results. There's been a few games that have utilized that mechanic as well. So there's all sorts of different terrain that's reflected in the terrain cards, and line of sight is actually taken care of through that as well. So it's kind of an elegant system from what I've learned so far. Even though there is a lot to know, it is kind of neat how they utilize the cards and very simple mechanics. It's funny how the table presence of this game is not particularly overwhelming, but the narrative seems to be one that is going to really shine. It's an aspect that's going to really shine in this game. You can see all the player aids. This is the sequence of play, if you can believe it. It's not double-sided though, thank God. Anyway, we're looking at the campaign, the different campaign sheets. Now you'll need to copy or download and print these. There is only one copy of each provided. And then we have more player aids, the number of actions you can take, as well as the stuff that controls the bot, and then lots and lots of counter sheets. 6 counter sheets in all. There's over 1,000 counters in this game. A lot of it is tracking the states of the soldiers on the board, things like whether they're pinned, whether they're a casualty, and whether the teams break down into smaller components due to enemy fire. So there's a lot of status to track with this. I think that's where the critics of the game have come from in terms of their criticisms in saying it can be a fiddly game. It is something perhaps is one of those games where it seems to cry out for a digital adaptation. I don't know, I prefer playing these games in analog form even if they are fiddly. There's something very zen about just kind of managing the counters and going through a scenario like that. So there's all sorts of counters though, including some pyrotechnics. Kind of interesting. You can use those to control your troops with certain prearranged signals. And then we've got the books, lots and lots of books. So we have the Normandy scenario book. That's for the Normandy campaign. We've got one of the 2 Korean campaigns here. Gives a breakdown of all the things you'll need to play, each of the missions that are provided. We're going to put these back in the box. And the next booklet is another Korean campaign, and I haven't looked into it, to be honest, to see what the difference is between the 2 Korean campaigns. Presumably different locations or different eras, I'm not sure, within the conflict. And then we have Vietnam. This system is robust enough to cover small-scale combat in different eras. And then finally, we have a standalone mission, which can be used arguably for training and learning about how to maneuver and use your troops, or it can be just a challenge in and of itself. And then we have the fast start guides, and people laugh at me when I say this, but this fast start guide is 50 pages long and is quite easy to follow and so forth, but still lots of reading. And that's part one of the fast start guides. There's another one which is used for more learning about how helicopters work and various vehicles, and same idea, but they've separated it into two parts, and that's another 46 pages. And then we have the rule book, which is bound and is amazing, and it sits nice and flat on the table. But when you're 96 pages long, that's a feature that's probably compulsory at that point. Very nice rule book, very well laid out and so forth, but it is still 96 pages. This game is an investment of time. And so we're going to put everything back in the box and put the box lid back on there. And as you might know, I like to always put my games back in their shrink wrap at the end of every session, just to make sure that the game is going to be well preserved, dust-free, and in good shape for my next play. So I'm just going to put that in. And sometimes I even like to go the extra step, which is to put it back into the box which it was shipped in, and I keep those packing peanuts there just for that purpose. We're gonna throw some more back onto the top here, and make sure that it is very, very secure for our next playthrough. So anyway, hope this reboxing gave you an idea of what's inside, and now we will go to an example of play. Now we take a quick look at the so-called map, which are these cards. The map is expressed in terms of these cards. There are no hexes, although there are counters. And the counters down below, you've got some squads, leaders, and units with special weapons like machine guns and those binoculars which can call in mortar rounds and so forth. So it's a very interesting layout, very different from many other war games. Now I'm going to walk through the round, but remember it's a very simplified example of play. So typically the HQs, the higher HQs give orders to subordinate HQs. Now the only HQ on the board is a platoon HQ, which is that leader here, and the assumption is that the CO HQ is just off map and has one action available to activate that platoon HQ unit, and that they are always in constant communication. Now that the platoon HQ is activated, we're going to draw a card which is going to give us the number of orders that the unit will receive this impulse, and that they can use to activate other units or take actions itself. So we draw the top action card from the deck, and it's card number 30. So take a look at the large number in the helmet at the top left. That's the number of orders that platoon HQ has this turn. So in this case it's a 3, so we're going to move the command marker to the top half of the 3 box on the command track. So without any radios or telephones or anything, the platoon HQ can only give orders to the units that it shares a terrain card with. This is known as visual verbal communication. And we use the counter on the command track to track the number of commands that the platoon HQ has. So there are 3 this time, so we're going to order the 1-1 squad to move to the front left open fields, and whenever a unit moves, the exposed marker goes onto it. That's to reflect the fact that moving target is a little bit easier to spot from the enemy's perspective. 2-1 squad moves forward to the center field and we mark it exposed, and 3-1 squad moves to the front right and we mark it exposed. Now that's the last command that the first platoon HQ has, so we move the counter to the activations completed box above the command track and flip it over to the activation completed side. And there's also an initiative segment in which all HQs and staff who are not activated may draw for initiative commands. So this allows units to move of their own accord without being directly controlled by an HQ. Because the platoon HQ is already activated, we just do something called general initiative. And this is where we draw a card. This is card number 25. And we look at the smaller number at the top left. In this case, it's a 2. Now, when we play a mission with a single platoon, the general initiative number is halved and we round the fractions down. So this means that there is 1 command to spend. So we can use that to activate the bazooka team and move that team to the front left open fields. And of course, they are marked as exposed. Now there's no enemies to worry about in this mission, we're just worrying about movement. So phases like the enemy activity phase, mutual capture and retreat phase, etc. are skipped. But the final phase of the turn is when exposed markers are removed from all units, and we move the turn marker up to 2. The first platoon command marker goes to its holding box above the command track, and we start the sequence again. So now we begin turn 2. And in turn 2, once again, the company HQ activates the platoon HQ. So we flip this over to commands available, and then we draw a card, and we look at the number in the helmet, and it's a 4. So we get 4 commands to work with this turn, and the platoon HQ spends those 4 commands, moving the light machine gun to the front right field, and of course is marked exposed. And the FO, which is the forward observer, moves straight forward into the open fields with the 2-1 and are also marked exposed. Then the platoon HQ moves itself forward to join the FO. And then the 2-1 squad is ordered to move straight ahead into the open fields on row 2. Once again, they are marked exposed. That was the last command, so the first platoon HQ's command marker is placed on the activations completed box at the top of the display and flipped to its activation completed side. So once again, we follow up with the general initiative impulse, draw a card for that, and the number is 2. We have to have it because we've got 1 platoon in play, so we'll use that 1 command to move the 1-1 squad forward into the orchard. As always, that squad is marked as exposed. And then we skip down all the way to the cleanup phase. We remove the exposed markers from all the units, move the turn marker up to 3, and move the first platoon command marker across to its holding box and go back to the beginning. And with that, we skip down through the phases to the platoon HQ staff impulse, and we draw for commands. It's card 11, which has a 4 at the top, so we get 4 commands to work with this turn. The first thing that the platoon HQ does is to order the mortar forward observer to move straight forward and is marked exposed. Then moves itself across to the right column where the 3-1 squad and the light machine gun are waiting, and the platoon headquarters is marked as exposed. Then immediately the platoon HQ orders the 3-1 squad to move straight forward, and then with the last command to move the light machine gun forward. And they are marked as exposed. And then we skip all the way down to the general initiative impulse, draw a card, it's number 16 with 3 commands. We cut that in half and round it down to 1 command, which we're going to use to move the bazooka team straight forward. Because of how far away it is from the platoon HQ, it's a good thing this happens because otherwise it might be awkward to move the commander all the way back there just to order it forward 1 space. Then we clean up all the exposed markers and move on to turn 4. In turn 4, we go down to the platoon HQ staff impulse, draw the next card, and we get a 4 again. So we move the first platoon HQ command marker to the 4 box on the display. Now in this case, the platoon HQ only spends 3 commands to move itself to the front left to join the mortar FO and 2-1, which are taking a position in the open fields. We mark the HQ as exposed. Then we order the mortar forward observer to move straight forward and the 2-1 squad to move straight forward. They're marked as exposed as per usual. Now the last command can be saved, and depending on the situation, an HQ can save a certain amount of commands. That's all marked on the command track. In this case, we slide it down to the saved command zone at the bottom half of the track. Then we jump down to the general initiative impulse, draw card number 13 with 3 commands. Of course, that is halved and rounded down to 1 command, and we use that to move the 1-1 squad straight forward. And we zip down to cleanup and remove all exposed markers. The turn marker moves up to turn 5, and the first platoon HQ command marker slides up to the top half of the 1 box on the command track, because there's still that saved command that can be used later. And we're just about there. We draw the next card for the number of commands. It's card number 3, and there are 5 commands. That's a lot, so I don't know if we'll need them all. And in fact, the first platoon HQ spends 3 commands in this case. First of all, moving itself to the right where it joins the light machine gun and the 3-1 squad. The first platoon HQ is marked as exposed. Then the 3-1 squad moves straight forward into the woods and is marked exposed, and the light machine gun joins the 3-1 squad there as well, and they will share the exposed status. Now, because there's no need, the first platoon HQ saves 3 commands for the next turn, so we flip the command marker, slide it down onto the saved zone of the command track. And then we draw a card for General Initiative, and it's card 18 with 2 commands. We cut that in 2, and we have the last command of the turn, which is to move the bazooka team straight forward. And this is where the mission ends, because we've basically got our squad into position all the way up the map board, so to speak, and the last turn would just be moving the HQ into row 3 to complete the mission. So close enough. And we move on to the next platoon assault course run, which I will cover in a future video. One of the things that this exercise illustrates is that it's generally faster to move everyone together, but obviously that carries the risk of having, say, a mortar round or a grenade or something like that hitting you and taking you out in large numbers. So it's usually better to disperse, but that comes with a certain amount of fiddliness. And so you have to balance the two between speed of advance and safety. So this is my little reboxing and preview of Fields of Fire. We will be doing some other content on this game. I'm really looking forward to diving in. Thanks for watching. This is Legendary Tactics.